Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Big Jake podcast. This is episode number 11. Here we are in June. It's June 11th, 2023. Last week, wasn't able to do a podcast. I was on the road the whole time. Didn't have an opportunity, and I'll tell you about that in a second, but it's nice to be back. So we'll tell you what's happened in the last couple of weeks. So last week I did a absolute nutty road trip where I flew to Denver, met up with a buddy of mine, and then we drove all over the place. We went to this Native American casino that was southeast of Albuquerque, 7 or 8 hours from Denver. Then we had to drive 10 or 11 hours the next day up to Grand Junction, and then drive again to a place in Montrose. Those shows were okay. The casino was very nice facilities. Beautiful location, really well made facilities. The rooms were great, the view was great, all of it was nice. The only problem was is we had no time. I mean, we showed up, we had 25 minutes, sound check, eat dinner, do the show, and then 11-hour drive the next day. So really no time to enjoy it, which is a bummer when you're in such a nice place that you can't enjoy it at all. But such is life. And then we went up to Grand Junction. It's interesting. The first show was at the casino and a pretty good turnout, but they didn't start all in there. And I got the impression a couple of things. First, a lot of people entered after the show began. Probably about half of the crowd entered after the show began. And that just made it for a tough show. I got the feeling that the group of people did not become an audience. They were just individuals. I also got the vibe that a few of the men, especially, were there against their will. Like they would have rather be doing something else, but their wife wanted to see the comedy show. So they're going to sit and watch the comedy show for an hour and then get out of there. So it was weird. It was not a great show. I thought I had him a few different times. I thought I had him, but I don't know. I got off stage and I was thinking, man, this is a lot of effort for that rough of a show. And then my friend Mark, he got up on stage and didn't go any better for him. So there's some solace in knowing, oh, okay, it wasn't just me. But it's also a little bit frustrating when you have a bad show that took a lot of effort to get there. I mean, if it's just down the road, if you just heard about it 10 minutes ago, but I got on an airplane for this. I drove multiple hours. I'm staying at a hotel for this. And not great. The Grand Junction show was a lot better. It's interesting, the Grand Junction show had a host and then two guest comedians did like 5 or 10 minutes each, which mean me as the feature, my time got cut down. I was going to do 25 to 30. and then it got cut down to 20 to 25, and I got the vibe that they really wanted me closer to the 20 mark. So I got in there and I hit the 20 mark. I think I did 23 minutes. Hit it hard and had a great show. Really tight. And it's fun to do that where I'm not worried about running out of material. I'm not worried about filling my time. I can just hit it hard and hit it good for the whole time and walk out thinking like, yeah, crushed. And really did feel like that at that show. The third show also went pretty well. It wasn't as good as the second one, but it was good. It was still good. Good crowd. They were into it. The tricky thing was it was outside. I don't know why there's so many shows that they like doing outside. I get it. It's the summertime. I get it's a nice day, but still, why? Why do you want to go outside? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so I did the outside show. That was fine. Back in town. I got back in town 2-3 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning. Had a long day of work, long week of work. But on Thursday of this week, I participated in the World Series of Comedy at Laugh Louisville. So it's one of the newer clubs, the newest club here in town, and had a great show. Had a great show, objectively very, very good show. I got to thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not sure if I can do better than that. That's as good as I do. That was me doing great. I also thought I was clearly in the top. I thought I was. I couldn't imagine somebody that did better. I watched the whole show and I did better than everybody. I know that. They go and they call the top two. They call the second place guy, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't really agree with that, but okay, whatever. And then I'm about to stand up because I know it's me. I know I'm the first place because I was in the room, and of course it wasn't me. So it's one of those things where I don't know what criteria they're using. It's clearly a different criteria than I'm using. And it was frustrating. I would compare it to like a manager, a baseball manager arguing balls and strikes. You're never going to win with the umpire. The umpire makes a bad call. He calls something that's clearly a strike. He calls it a ball. And you say, hey, that's a terrible call. You're going to get thrown out of the game, and it's not going to be overturned. That's the situation. But you're still frustrated because you know you're right. Nowadays, you can see people doing little YouTube videos where they show that the manager was right in saying that's a bad call and the umpire was wrong in calling it bad. I mean, I'll never be validated in this, but it's one of those things. It's frustrating. It feels like injustice. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh of a statement, but it feels like they got it wrong. At the very least, I disagree with their call. And it was frustrating because I enjoy comedy. I had a good show. I had a good set. The whole show went well. There was a lot of funny comedians. The audience had a good time. It was at a cool club. Everything that you would like. Everything that you would like. But you throw this veneer of a competition that seems like it's not fair on top of it. And it makes it not fun at all. I don't like it. So maybe I'm not cut out for competitions because it frustrates me too much. So, and if that's the case, then that's the case. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of comedy, and comedy is not inherently a competition. I think goobers try to put it into a competition just as a way to sell tickets, a way to make it something, whatever. But, I mean, I know I had a good show. And the next day, so this was Friday, I went to Peachtree City, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And in Peachtree City, I did 60 minutes, did a whole hour by myself. And it was outside. I had to be clean. There was kids present. Had a lot of people come up to me and say, hey, that was so funny. Absolutely loved it. Loved that my kids not only could be here, but also enjoyed it. And we really enjoyed it. And there was there was adults and everybody really enjoyed it. There was 50 people there. Again, it was outside. I don't know why people like having outside comedy. I have performed 3 times for pay in Georgia. All 3 times have been outside. I don't get it, but whatever. Maybe they just love doing stuff outside. Upcoming, I've got a couple of fun shows coming up on Thursday of this week in Vandalia, Ohio, which is right outside of Dayton. I'm doing a show with Wendy Ferguson, and she is billed. I don't know if that's the right word. She uses the little quote of the smallest comedian or comedian. She is, I want to say, like 3 foot tall, something like that. She's significantly shorter than me. If we stood next to each other, you would notice that she's quite a bit shorter. We'll just leave it there. I've not seen her before. I've heard of her and have seen photos, seen shows, like show posters, things like that, but have not actually done a show with her before. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be a good time. And then Friday and Saturday, I'm going to be hosting for Tim Meadows from Saturday Night Live, the ladies' man, Tim Meadows, doing that at the Louisville Comedy Club. Pretty excited about that. That should be a good one. And yeah, so that's going well. In other comedic news, I've been in a improv mood. I don't know if that's the right word, but I've joined an improv troupe. I had to audition. They had to vote for me. And I was able to make the improv troupe, which is good, I suppose. And I'm enjoying improv. It's a different skill set. It makes me think a little different, but I'm into it. They have a show coming up at the end of this month, but I'm already booked, so I won't be able to play in the show, which is, that's just what it is sometimes. You're not going to be able to do every show. But I am, looking forward to performing with them. I think some of the guys, one guy I'm kind of hitting it off with, we might be able to do some stuff. He mentioned that he wants to teach either improv or sketch writing. Both of those sound interesting to me. So we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. I also have been hanging out with another guy, and we're playing swords. We're doing some sword martial arts. And he takes it very serious, and it is a martial art. And there's all these sort of trainings and levels, and I don't know. I'm pretty excited about it. It's a lot of swords, and I don't know what to think, but so far it's been pretty good. And then one other thing I'll mention is there's a couple of writing clubs here in Louisville. There's one on Mondays that meets at the Barnes and Noble where they will critique each other. And there's another one on Tuesdays, and the one on Tuesdays is called Shut Up and Write, where you meet together and then you write for 60 minutes uninterrupted. Everybody's sitting around quietly writing together, which seems like a solo activity. Why are they doing that together? I'm not 100% sure. Both of those I'm intrigued by because I want to get into more writing, and I think that might be able to help me. I really would like to write a book. I have a couple of ideas, but I like the idea of a book as merchandise, and also a book as a business card. Both of those ideas I'm kind of getting from other people. Like my buddy that I went to the Native American casino and Grand Junction, all that, he's got a book that he sells, and he sold several copies. $25. I'm sure it cost him $4 and selling this thing. He also has an audio version of the book. I like that idea. I also like the idea of using it as kind of a business card. My brother has done this. He wrote a book to get leads on different things, to be seen as an expert in the field. I think both of those ideas could be explored. I don't know. I feel like I just need to go for it. And maybe some of these writing clubs would help me go for it. One of the bigger ideas that I have is a choose your own adventure style book where there's a lot of humor in it, and you are reading this book and eventually you've got to make decisions, and the decisions can go weird and squirrely and all sorts of different stuff happens. I like that idea. We'll give it a shot and see if anything comes of it. I am going to tell you this story. So when I was in college, my first semester, I was on the debate team, and then really kind of found out that wasn't for me. And my second semester, and then for the rest of my time in college, I worked at a Holiday Inn. I worked at the Holiday Inn Express over by the Little Caesars, and I worked the third shift, which is 11 at night to 7 in the morning. I did some other shifts sometimes where I would do second shift, a couple of first shifts, not a whole lot of first shifts, but mostly middle of the night, graveyard shift, overnight. And this story comes from that time. There's a lot of weird things that happen in the middle of the night in a Holiday Inn. But this one I thought was very interesting. Anyway, so I'm working 2 days in a row. And the first day I'm working, and I'm doing my thing, and I notice that there's this woman that's sitting in the lobby. And she's on her computer and just typing away or clicking away, whatever, just kind of lost in her own world in her computer. Now, she is middle-aged. She's a little overweight. She's a little grungy. But I didn't really think much of it. I'm doing all of my duties. I've got paperwork to do. I've got computer work to do. I've got to deliver newspapers and deliver bills so that the people that are checking out can see that. And I also have to set up the breakfast. And I'm doing all of that. She's still there. She's still there. She's there all night long. She's sitting on a couch in the living room or the lobby of the Holiday Inn all night, which is weird. It's not that weird for having somebody to sit there for a couple hours, but to sit there all night until 6, 7 o'clock in the next morning. And so I talked to the next guy. Like, I don't know what her deal is, but she's been there all night, which is weird. Anyway, the next day I come in, and she's still there. She's still in the lobby, still on her computer. I can see over her shoulder that she's playing a computer game. And is using our Wi-Fi, play the computer game, sitting on the couch. It's weird. Now, a lot of me doesn't care. Whatever. But the managers want her to, hey, you're not staying here. This is weird. Why don't you just move on? I don't think she was homeless. I think she was just weird. Anyway, so I asked her. Well, I asked the guy that I'm relieving. What are we gonna do? And they're like, well, let's call her a cab and get her out of here. So I asked her, I say, hey, you're not a guest here. You can't stay here all night long. And she said, call me a cab. I'm like, okay. So I call her a cab. It's like 11:30 at night. So my shift is pretty much just now starting. The cab takes a little while to get there. It takes 20, 30 minutes, whatever. As the cab pulls up, she goes into the bathroom that's right next to the front desk. So you can picture it, the front desk, and then just around the corner, really, really close, is the one-person bathroom. That's the lobby one-person bathroom. And she sits in there. She brought her computer. And I am just waiting. The cab driver gets out and says, hey, who called the cab? I said, it's the lady. I called it for this lady. She's in the bathroom right now. And so he's just waiting around. 10, 15 minutes goes by. A couple of good old boys come and check in. Now, they've had a little bit to drink. They're feeling great. They're having a good time. It's a little bit late, and they're all bubbly in a good mood. I'm trying to check them in. So I'm standing there behind the desk, checking them in, really just talking to one of the guys, getting his name and information and getting him the room and everything taken care of. His buddy goes to the bathroom, goes around the corner, checks the handle's locked, and then knocks on the door. And this lady who spent the last 2 days in our lobby, yells so loud that I can hear her from the front desk. I'm trying to poop. And this dude thought it was so funny. He comes back up to the front desk and says, "Oh, that lady's trying to poop in there," and I'm giving her a hard, oh my god, and he's just loving it. I'm trying to hold it together. I'm getting these guys checked in, and they just want to keep talking about this because they think it's so funny. They're like, "Oh, let's go check again." And they go back over there and knock on the door and like, "Hey, stop knocking on the door! I'm trying to poop." And they're just dying laughing. Of course, I'm sure that lady thinks it's me that's harassing her in the bathroom, and I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to check these guys in. Anyway, I get these guys checked in. They go to their room. It's now been probably an hour since she's been in the bathroom. The cab driver is standing right there. It's like, what am I gonna do here, man? I've called everybody. I get on the phone with the GM and I'm explaining the situation. Like, dude, this is a weird one. He says, I mean, you gotta call the police. This is trespassing. At this point, she has no right to be here. She's interfering with guests. You got to call the police. What else can you do? So I call the police. I don't call 911. I'm not freaking out about this. I'm not saying this is an emergency. I say, hey, when you get a minute, can you come over here? The police eventually get there. She's been in the bathroom for probably close to 2 hours at this point. And they knock on the door, and she yells, "Hey, I'm trying to poop." And the police they say, "We're the police. You got to come out. You're trespassing. You have to leave." "I'm trying to poop." The police are trying to reason with this lady and say, "Hey, we're going to open this door. But before we open this door, we're going to discharge pepper spray under the door. If we discharge pepper spray under the door, then that means we had to use a certain level of force, which means we have to arrest you. We have no other choice. Or you can open the door and just leave." She opens the door and just leaves. Walks out. I never see her again. The taxi driver is standing right there and said, "Who's going to pay for this fare? I've been standing here for like 2 hours." And the cop says, "Nobody." Everybody just leaves, and there I am alone in a Holiday Inn with a bizarre night. So there's at least one Holiday Inn story. There's a lot more, but there's at least one. I have been reading a good amount lately. I finished one book called The Fun Habit. I don't know about this book. I like it and I don't like it. There's parts of it that I took, I think, beneficial things from. Overall, I would say it's subpar. At the same time, I still gained value. The biggest part I didn't like about it is I did it in audiobook, and you might say, "Hey, Jake, then that means you didn't read it." But whatever. I did the audiobook, and the guy read his own audiobook, and he read it in like this earnest whisper the whole time. Like as if he was trying to, like he was recording it, and his wife was in the room, and he wanted to make sure she didn't hear him record this audiobook. It was this weird, like, whispery. I did not like it. This book was not that long. I like to finish books, especially if I've invested a little bit of time. I think it was in the neighborhood of 7 hours total. I was about 2 hours into it, and I'm like, I am so sick of this guy and his reading. I have 5 more hours of this, though. I could push through. So I ended up pushing through. I finished the book. There was some parts that I really liked, making room for fun, doing fun things with other people, having a fun file. Some of these things are interesting. Overall, I'm not sure. Another book that I'm reading that I am enjoying is called Dollars and Cents. Reading this one, it's a physical paper book. So some people are like, oh, well, you're actually reading that one. Okay, I get it, Copernicus. But this book is talking about all of the different ways that we misjudge money and value. Things like sunk costs and things like discounts. So a couple of the things I thought were pretty interesting. If you have somebody just think of a number or say a number that's high and then guess a price of something, they'll guess a higher price. They'll be more likely to say the thing is more expensive. They did this with people's social security number. Write down the last 2 digits of your social security number and then price this toaster. And the people whose social security number was higher than the price of the toaster put a higher price on the toaster. So weird. It has nothing to do with it. Obviously, this has nothing to do with the price of the toaster. But just thinking of a high number makes you value something higher, which is so weird. One of the other things that I liked was how you make a discount. And marketers know this. So if something is $100 and you're going to say, it's now $20, you'll say 80% off, right? Because 80% off, man, that sounds great. They showed all of these different ways of, if you write the price of something on the tag, like write $150, then cross it out and say $70, people will be more likely to think that is a good deal. It doesn't matter what the thing is. I mean, you could have just said, you made up that first number. Who cares? It's one of those just weird things. And then sunk cost is so interesting. Like if you were making a movie or making a car, we'll say making a car, and you've spent $100 million researching and developing a car, and then your researchers and developers says, hey, we need $10 million more, and then we'll be finished making this car, and it'll be a good car. Or they say, hey, we can just completely scrap that idea, but if you give us 10 million, we'll be able to make this other car that's even better. People are more likely to go with that first one because of all of the sunk costs. It's so weird the way that we think, and we're not logical with money. I don't know. I think that's fascinating. I'm not sure if there's going to be any jokes there, but I do think it's interesting. And then the one other book that I've been reading was Skip the Line. And this guy is talking about skipping the line. Basically, he tells a couple of stories about how he was this low-level guy working at HBO, had an idea for a show, went into the executive's office and pitched the idea. And everybody was telling him, you can't do that. There are channels. And I think about it in the terms of comedy, because there's definitely a line in comedy. There's, okay, in order to get to this next level, then we got to go here and then here and then here and then here and then here. And comedians are really jealous and resentful of people who jump over others. it's a meritocracy. It's not about tenure. It's about who's good. So it's an interesting concept. I don't know. Makes me think. I haven't finished that book yet, but I am enjoying it so far. As far as diet goes, not doing great on the diet. I've had a couple of fasting days, had a couple of gluten-free, keto-y days, and been traveling a lot, which makes me have bad choices. However, I am in a walking challenge. There's a certain number of steps I need to take, and that challenge ends in the next week, ends on Friday, and I have to take about 14,000 steps, which is 6-7 miles, something like that, every day between now and Friday. So while I'm not doing great at diet, I am doing pretty decent at my walking challenge. As far as jokes that I want to try, I have a bit about napping, and I want to make it into my regular routine. It's not where it is right now. I don't like it at the moment. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, I don't like it. So I need to polish it. I need to get it a little bit. I think I need to get it a little bit sharper, a little bit shorter, a little more punchy. I wrote it as part of the helium class that I took, and I really haven't done it since then. But I have enjoyed it. I like the concept for sure. And I think there's something there, so I need to come back to it. And then the one concept that I have come up with recently that I like is anti-soccer joke, which I don't like soccer. A lot of people don't like soccer. I think it's boring, but the idea, the little germ of a question that I want to explore is saying that soccer is ungodly because God has created us and we're in his image and we have been gifted with something that is so useful, which is our hands. Whenever somebody talks about something that they create, they say, look at their handiwork. And then there's this whole game that just ignores the most glorious aspect of humanity. It's a spit in God's face. So that's the concept, at least, that I want to explore. So anyway, thanks for joining me. We'll catch you on the next one.